Before we get into today's show, let me tell you about the latest deal from Mike Lindell, MyPillow. Once again, the big box stores have canceled their orders simply because they don't agree with Mike Lindell's politics. They don't like it because he supports President Trump. Well, he's going to pass that savings on to you. No more middleman. And boy, does he have some great deals on the Giza Dream Sheets and the Percal bed sheets. Listen to this. Giza Dream queen size, normally $139.98. Your wholesale price, $69.99 when you use promo code Joey. King size, only $79.99. The Percal queen size, normally $89.98. Your wholesale price, $29.98 when you use promo code Joey. Just call 1-800-893-4059 or go to mypillow.com. Always use promo code Joey. Free shipping options available. This allotment's not going to last very long. When they're gone, they're gone. mypillow.com. Promo code Joey. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. Okay, hope you had a great Labor Day and are ready to get back to work. Got a lot to cover today. Just months into his second term, President Trump has 100 miles of border wall in the works. Capitol Hill has approved an additional $46.5 billion with a B to add hundreds more miles and finish his marquee promise from his 2016 campaign. It's taken about a decade, but it's well worth it. Illinois Governor JB Pritzker says he doesn't need Donald Trump's help with crime in his state, but the numbers show a different image. You're not going to believe the latest crime stats out of Chicago this past Labor Day weekend. Another viral video moment has a CEO of a Polish company apologizing for snatching a signed cap out of the hands of a young boy at the U.S. Open Tennis Championship. After becoming world famous as the hat-snatcher, this guy's getting a lesson on how to treat people. And another Hollywood celebrity says, so long to America, now that President Donald Trump is back in the White House. You want to guess who it is now? And many other states are looking to follow the lead of Texas and do a mid-decade redistricting plan, which is shaping up to be one of the nastiest political fights of 2025.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
All right, folks, let's be clear here. This is a moment that President Donald Trump has been waiting for since he came down that escalator back in 2015. The wall, the single most iconic promise of his first campaign, and has finally gone from being the most controversial idea in Washington to now a bipartisan, no-brainer solution that most Americans support. Now, why it took this long to become a bipartisan issue, I'll never understand. It only took a decade. Millions of illegal crossings and tragic headlines across the country for the political class to catch up to what President Trump has been saying all along. A nation without borders is not a nation at all. So let's rewind. Let's go back to 2018. Donald Trump asked Congress for $25 billion to finish the wall. Democrats flat out said no. The government shut down for a record 35 days over just $5 billion in funding. The media mocked him. They said it would never happen. Then fast forward to today. Just months into his second term, President Trump has 100 miles of new barrier already underway, and Congress has approved another $46.5 billion to finish the job. It's not a typo. Again, $46 billion. And the best part? There was barely a whimper this summer when lawmakers passed it as part of Trump's One Big Beautiful Bill. No shouting matches, no shutdowns, no all-night floor speeches about racism and all the other issues that the Democrats bring up typically when you're talking about funding a new wall. It was just a quiet acknowledgement that the American people are demanding border security, and Congress can't hide from it anymore. So what has changed? The answer is very simple. Joe Biden. Joe Biden happened. For 4 years, Biden slow-walked wall construction, shut it down pretty much, was selling materials that Trump had purchased for pennies on the dollar. On his very first day in office, Joe Biden halted all new projects. He sold off leftover steel materials for pennies on the dollar, gave it away because he said that walls don't work. Meanwhile, you had millions of people pouring across the border. Sanctuary cities like New York, Boston, Los Angeles, liberal cities that used to brag about protecting migrants, suddenly found themselves overwhelmed. Schools overcrowded, hospitals drained, social services collapsing. New York City alone said it would have to cut billions from other services just to house the new arrivals. And then came the tragedies. The murder of Laken Riley in Georgia by Venezuelan illegal immigrant put a human face on Joe Biden's failure. Americans saw firsthand what happens when leaders put ideology over security, and suddenly the polls shifted. A Pew survey found in June that 56% of Americans now support the wall. That's up from just 46% in 2019. President Trump didn't change. The facts did. The left's open border experiment collapsed under its own weight. Now, Customs and Border Protection says they've got a robust acquisition strategy to spend the new funding. Right now, only about 1/3 of the southwest border has man-made barriers. Most of that, of what's there, is outdated. Missing cameras, missing lights, missing detection technology that some of the new areas have. That's about to change. We're not just talking about steel and concrete. We're talking about sensors. We're talking about drones, surveillance towers, and yes, even waterborne barriers along rivers. The wall is becoming not just a barrier, but a complete system, a modern security shield along our southern border, as it should have been all along. Homeland Security Secretary Kristi Noem even waived environmental rules this week to speed up construction in Texas, citing the flood of drugs pouring across the Rio Grande. Now, that's how this should be handled all along. Make it a top priority. President Trump has been crystal clear. The Biden years were wasted time. He's furious about how the last administration literally auctioned off the wall materials for scrap. Trump said they stole the wall from us. And he's right. It was sabotage, plain and simple. It was stupid. It was just stupid. And every time I think about that dummy Joe Biden not understanding the value of of putting up a wall, it's just crazy. And it just makes you think he only did it because Donald Trump wanted to do it. Joe Biden canceled building the wall and cost us billions of dollars probably simply because he wanted to show Donald Trump that he could. But now that mistake is being corrected. Of course, the critics are still out there. The Cato Institute says this is a strange, arguing that the border has already improved with the 700 miles of barriers built under Clinton, Bush, Obama, and Trump's first term. They warn the new funding might go towards detention centers or personnel. Well, there's going to have to be some detention centers as well. But border agents themselves will tell you, walls work. They don't stop everything, but they reshape the battlefield. They funnel illegal crossings into areas where agents can respond more effectively. They save manpower. They buy time, and time in law enforcement saves lives. It's just that simple. Art Del Cuto, a former Border Patrol agent, said it's best. It's not a be-all, end-all. It doesn't stop everything, but it allows agents to strategically place resources where they're needed the most. And that's the reality from the front lines. The people, the men and women who are down there every day doing their job. They should know. And it's the reality Democrats ignored for years while they lived in their gated communities and lectured to the rest of us about compassion. Well, let's not forget how much President Trump was mocked for this idea. Remember the build the wall chants, the late night comedians sneering about Mexico never writing a check, the endless editorials about cruelty and xenophobia? And yet here we are in 2025 with Congress handing over $46.5 billion with hardly a fight. Why? Because now every state is a border state, and they're finally recognizing that. The crisis spread. What Trump warned about finally hit home for blue states, and suddenly walls don't look so cruel anymore. They look like common sense. They look like what any country will do to protect their own people. So yes, Trump has triumphed in the border wall battle, but it's more accurate to say Biden lost it. Joe Biden, Kamala Harris very badly lost it. His refusal to secure the border handed Donald Trump the biggest political gift imaginable, proof that strong borders aren't racist, that they're necessary, proof that walls work, proof that America cannot afford open borders like we had under Joe Biden. This fight started as the most polarizing issue in Washington. It's ending as one of Trump's biggest victories because he never wavered. He said it in 2016. He fought for it in 2019, and now in 2025, he's going to deliver it. He's going to deliver a promise that he has been delivering to the American people for a decade now. And folks, let's be honest. It's not just about Trump. It's about the very principle of sovereignty. A country that cannot control its borders cannot protect its citizens. It's just that simple. And for the first time in a long time, it feels like America is finally back on the path of common sense. Walls work, borders matter, and Donald J. Trump was right all along. You agree? Text me, email me, joe@joeyhudson.com. Was this not the right thing to do? And won't we all be much safer once that last mile of wall is completed? America is in a health crisis, and by America, not just strangers across the country. It's personal. Me, you, friends, and family. And a major cause? Excess weight. Joey Hudson here. The solution isn't expensive shots like Ozempic. It's learning how to eat and think about food differently, and that's what PhD Weight Loss does. Their clients lose up to a third of their body weight. No drugs, just real food, behavioral coaching, and proven science to turn your body into a fat-burning machine. Sure, you could spend up to $20,000 a year on injections that burn muscle, not fat, and come with risks like pancreatitis or bowel blockages, only to gain it all back. PhD helps your body naturally produce weight loss hormones like GLP-1s. No shortcuts, just results that last. Already on Ozempic? Dr. Ashley Lucas and her team will help you safely transition off and keep losing weight. Let's make America healthy again. Call 864-644-1900. That's 864-644-1900 or visit myphdweightloss.com. Sadly, while most of America was firing up the grill, celebrating Labor Day, doing the things that we all enjoy, spending time with family, friends, there's a quite different story unfolding in Chicago. Bodies were literally piling up. 54 people were shot. 7 are dead. Dozens more wounded, many of them clinging to life in local hospitals. Again, this isn't Baghdad. This isn't in the Gaza Strip. This isn't somewhere in between Russia and Ukraine. This is a war zone, all right, but it's a war zone right here on American soil. This is an American city, the third largest in the nation. And it's happening and happened just this past weekend. According to police reports, there were 32 separate shootings across Chicago between Friday evening and midday yesterday. Drive-bys, bullets ripping through living room windows, young women caught in crossfire, teenagers gunned down, and all of this as political leaders posture, argue, and debate what to do about the carnage. President Trump wasted no time pointing fingers at Illinois Governor JB Pritzker. On Truth Social, Trump blasted him as weak and pathetic for refusing to call in the National Guard. The president went further, warning, "We're coming if Pritzker doesn't straighten it out fast." Now, Pritzker fired back, saying that troops on the streets of Chicago would be an invasion and promising to sue the Trump administration if they send federal forces into Chicago. His exact words, National Guard troops or any kind of troops on the streets of an American city don't belong unless there's an insurrection, unless there's truly an emergency, and there is not. Well, Governor, what would you call 54 people shot over the weekend in Chicago? Is that not an emergency? Tell that to the 54 families sitting by hospital beds this weekend. Tell that to the parents of the 17-year-old girl who was shot while sitting inside her own home. Tell that to the mom of the 25-year-old woman killed by multiple bullets on Friday night. Not an emergency? Yeah, Governor, sure. Where are you living? Mayor Brandon Johnson piled on too. He stood at a Workers Over Billionaires march and ended his speech with the rallying cry, "No troops in Chicago. Invest in Chicago." Now, who wants to invest in a city with that type of violence over a weekend? What company would want to move their employees there? What are you talking about there, Mr. Mayor? What do you want to invest in? Another round of social programs while gang members rule the streets with impunity? Let's look at the numbers. According to, this was from the New York Post, Chicago had 573 murders in 2024. Compare that with 377 in New York City and 268 in Los Angeles. Chicago's murder rate is about 22 killings per 100,000 people, more than 4 times that of New York's. Yes, there are worse cities, Detroit, Washington, Atlanta, surprisingly. But Chicago is the symbol. It's the city everyone looks to when they think of urban violence. So you always talk about the south side of Chicago. And year after year, weekend after weekend, the bloodshed continues. But yet, the mayor and the governor, they don't want any help from the president. Now, here's what's fascinating. When Trump declared a crime emergency in Washington, D.C., it was just earlier in August. He deployed thousands of federal agents and National Guard troops. The media freaked out. The Democrats screamed about authoritarianism. But you know what happened? Violent crime in D.C. in just that short period of time dropped 45%. Carjackings, which had become practically a sport in the nation's capital, dropped 87%. That's not theory. That's not some campaign rhetoric. That's actual results that were measured over these past few weeks. Same story in Los Angeles earlier this summer. When violent anti-ICE riots broke out, President Trump sent in 4,000 National Guard troops and 700 Marines. Within weeks, the violence subsided. By July 1st, nearly all the Guard members were gone. Mission accomplished. So the question is this. If federal action can work in D.C. and L.A., why wouldn't it work in Chicago? Why wouldn't Chicago leaders not want that kind of assistance? The answer, frankly, is politics. Democrats like Pritzker and Mayor Johnson don't want Trump to get credit for cleaning up their city. They'd rather let violence continue than admit federal help might be necessary. Pritzker did concede one thing. He said he'd accept more ATF agents to get illegal guns off the street, maybe some FBI support. But the idea of troops in Chicago, off the table. Why? Because it would prove Trump right, and that's something the governor simply cannot allow and will not allow if it's within his power. Meanwhile, the people of Chicago, they're left to fend for themselves. Ordinary men and women trapped in neighborhoods where stepping onto your front porch can get you killed. Actually, we're just sitting in your living room can get you killed with a drive-by shooting. Families who pray every weekend that their kids don't become another statistic, and they're just relieved when they get through another weekend and it doesn't happen. This is the divide in America right now. One side, you have leaders who say law and order matters. We'll do whatever it takes to protect citizens. On the other, you have leaders saying law enforcement is scary. Troops in the street are an invasion. Better to invest in long-term programs and hope things improve. Well, it's not going to improve. Ask the parents of that 17-year-old girl how much time they have to wait. Ask the families of the 7 who died this weekend how many more long-term programs they're willing to stomach. Trump's message is clear. If local leaders won't protect their people, the federal government will step in and do so. And whether you love him or hate him, you can't argue with the results he's already delivered in other cities, right? Chicago doesn't have a crime problem. It has a leadership problem. I mean, here's the truth. America cannot survive if our major cities are lawless war zones. People flee. Businesses leave. Families break apart, and the cycle of violence continues. The first responsibility of government is to keep people safe. Period. Shouldn't be a debate. If that means deploying troops temporarily, do it. If that means looking up gang members and keeping them locked up, do it. If that means backing the police with resources and respect, just do it. But don't stand in front of cameras and say this is not an emergency when 54 people are lying in pools of blood on your city streets. It's time to take action, and Donald Trump is ready to do so. So Governor Pritzker, Mayor Johnson, if you can't lead, get out of the way and let somebody who can. Well, folks, here we go again. Another Hollywood celebrity saying so long to America now that Donald Trump is back in the White House. We know Rosie O'Donnell fled the country. Good riddance. This time, it's Robin Wright, best known for her role in House of Cards and Forrest Gump. She just told the Times of London that she's basically done with the U.S., called it a S show, and said she's loving her new life in the UK. She said, there's a freedom of self here. People are so kind. They're not panicked in traffic eating sandwiches on the phone. Now, let's just pause right there. Yes, the woman who played a cold-blooded political manipulator on TV is now lecturing us about peace, kindness, and freedom of self, all while sipping tea in a seaside cottage in England. Wright says she's done searching and that America moves too fast with too much competition and speed. You know, things that build the economy, create jobs, make innovation possible. But apparently that's too stressful for Hollywood royalty like Robin Wright. And of course, she's not alone. We've heard this script before. Cher, Barbara Streisand, Mark Hamill, Whoopi Goldberg, Miley Cyrus, all vowing to leave the U.S. if Trump won. Well, he did. Some of them are still here. Some actually followed through. Ellen DeGeneres, Portia de Rossi, for example, are now showing off their British country life too. But here's the thing. Tell me if you agree. If these people don't want to be here, no one's stopping them. But what's insulting is there's this sense of superiority they seem to carry on their way out. They bash the very country that gave them millions of dollars, iconic careers, a global platform. Then they act like they're escaping tyranny. Robin Wright said, it's liberating to be done. Done with what exactly? A country that made her famous? A system that rewarded her beyond belief? That gave her the financial wherewithal to be able to choose what country she wants to live in? Honestly, the only thing more predictable than these celebrity exits is the fact that they always seem to announce them in the press. It's not just about leaving. It's about telling us that they're leaving, as if we all care, as if we should take notes. I don't care where you live. If you make your millions here in acting or whatever, entertainment, whatever, in business, whatever, you want to move to another country, move. Adios. You don't have to tell me about it, though. You're free to do so anytime you choose. Best of luck, Robin. Enjoy the peace and quiet of the English coast. We'll be over here working, building, voting, and living in the country that you just called a mess. Have you seen the latest viral video? Sometimes the internet finds a villain. Last week, that villain wasn't a politician. It wasn't a criminal. Wasn't even some Hollywood elite person saying, hey, we're going to leave the country. No, it was a Polish CEO at the U.S. Open Tennis Championship, caught on camera snatching a signed tennis cap right out of a kid's hands. Have you seen this video? It went viral quickly. Now, the video, well, let me back up. What you see tennis star Kamil Majerak, fresh off in an upset victory, signing a hat for a little boy in the stands. The boy's face lights up. You see the hat there. This is his moment, the kind of memory that a kid treasures for the rest of his life. And then out of nowhere, this grown man standing beside him, who turns out to be Peter Sreżerik, the CEO of a paving stone company back in Poland, reaches out, grabs the hat before it ever touches the child's hands. Now, the tennis star doesn't realize this is taking place because he's already kind of moved on, signing autographs over to the right. But just like that, the internet had its meme of the week, the hat-snatcher. Now, to his credit, Peter Szczerek admitted it was a mistake. He went on Instagram and said, "I would like to unequivocally apologize to the boy, his family, the fans, and the player. I made a serious mistake." He claims he thought that the hat was being handed to him for his sons. Said he got caught up in the emotion of the moment. Well, now you could clearly see he didn't think the hat was for him. He grabbed it out of this young man's hand, just jerked it away. In his apology, he even called it a painful but necessary lesson in humility. Well, you could say that again because the fallout has been brutal. Polls jumped on job search websites to call him a sack of garbage, a common thief, and a shameful jerk. Some pretty rough stuff online like people typically do. And here's the thing. In today's world, one bad moment, one viral clip can undo years of goodwill. Szczerek pointed out that he and his wife have been involved in helping children and young athletes for years, but everyone will ever remember now is that 2-second clip of him looking like he stole a hat from a kid. That's the power of the viral moment. One slip up, suddenly you're an international punchline. Just like the couple did at the concert that ruined their lives, ruined their marriages. Now, the tennis star himself, Majerek, tried to calm things down. He said it was some kind of confusion. Remember, Szczerek sponsors his tennis federation. Majerek said he was exhausted after the match, adrenaline pumping, and maybe he didn't make it clear who is handing the hat to. No. You can see it in the video. He knew who he is handing the hat to. And to the end of this, and there is a positive end, Majerek, the tennis star, met with the young boy afterwards, gave him a new signed hat and other gifts, and the kid was grinning from ear to ear. So there was a happy ending. The boy got his memory, maybe an even better one. But let's zoom out for a minute, because this story is about more than just a hat. It's about how grown adults sometimes forget what sports are really about. Sports aren't about CEOs getting souvenirs. They're not about sponsors grabbing the spotlight. They're about kids, the next generation, falling in love with the game, getting inspired. That little boy didn't just want a hat. He wanted a connection to a hero, his hero. And for a moment, a grown man almost stole that from him. It's a reminder that all of us, especially those of us in positions of influence, need to put kids first. They're the ones who should walk away with those moments and with smiles and not disappointments. They should be able to look up to adults and respect and appreciate adults. It's also a reminder of how quickly the mob can turn. This man learned a lesson quickly. 10 years ago, this story would have maybe made a footnote in a sports column. Today, it's an international scandal. Szczerek's name is plastered everywhere. He's being memed, mocked, dragged on social media. And in some ways, it's probably justice. It's probably justified. He embarrassed himself. He embarrassed his country. He embarrassed his company. But in other ways, it's a little scary too. One bad decision, one moment of poor judgment, and suddenly you're branded a thief worldwide. That's the world we live in now. That's the viral video world. Now, it's about accountability and humility at the same time. Szczerek messed up big time. And to his credit, he admitted it. He didn't blame the media. He didn't spin some excuse. He said, I made a serious mistake. I need to rebuild trust through actions. That's the right attitude. That's what leaders should do when they fall apart. Not dodge, not double down, apologize, learn, and do better. But it's also about priorities. In America, we've let adults, politicians, corporations, elites hijack things that should, again, belong to kids. Whether it's sports, schools, or even cultural traditions. Too often, spotlights shift away from children and onto the egos of the adults. This silly little story about a tennis hat shows it in a microcosm. A kid's joy was nearly stolen because a grown man thought he deserved the moment more. And honestly, Isn't that what so many of our problems boil down to? Adults putting themselves first, kids last, or our pride getting in the way? So, yes, Peter Sherrick is the hat-snatcher of the U.S. Open. Yes, he made himself an international villain for a week, but in the end, the young boy eventually got his hat. The player cleared the air, and the CEO says he's learned his lesson. Maybe. Let's hope he has, because the rest of us sure did. The lesson is simple. Don't be that guy. Think about what you're doing. Don't snatch joy away from a child to feed your own pride. Don't put yourself first in moments when others should be involved, when it should be for others. Because, folks, in a world that's already heavy enough, the last thing we need is grown men stealing hats from little boys at a tennis match and becoming known as a worldwide hat snatcher, a hat thief, if you will. Do you think the guy really learned his lesson, or is he just saying it to try to rebuild his reputation? Your comments are welcome on the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. That's 864-477-5639. Emails always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of the Furman Ford text line, it's never been more important to support locally run businesses owned by people who actually live here in the upstate. Let me take a minute to talk with you about our friends at Furman Ford. If you're looking for a new vehicle, maybe a great pre-owned vehicle, one you can trust, or maybe you're looking to order that special vehicle. Either way, if you want a new one, a brand new one, or a pre-owned that you can trust, the folks at Furman Ford, they're there to help you. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line, because every single transaction is important to them. Jim Furman, Matthew Furman. They do business the right way. When you stop by, when you give them a call, or maybe when you just send them a quick email, you're always going to have access to a member of the Furman Ford family. And by the way, they also offer great service, and you're not going to have to wait weeks and weeks to get it done. And you do not have had to purchase your vehicle at Furman Ford. Doesn't even have to be a Ford. They service all makes and models. Visit my friends at Furman Ford online at furmanford.com, furmanford.com. As we wrap up another day, I want to talk for a few minutes about something that's probably going to receive a lot of attention in the coming weeks and months. While most Americans are focused on the cost of groceries, back to school bills, getting ready for football season, there's another battle brewing in the background that could decide who actually runs Congress next year. And of course, I'm talking about the battle to redistrict the lines of Congress. It's shaping up to be one of the nastiest political fights of 2025. So here's the headline. Republicans just scored a major win in Texas. We watched it. Governor Greg Abbott signed new congressional maps into law, and it looks like those maps will give the GOP 5 extra House seats. No guarantees, but based on the demographics in those districts, most likely a Republican will be elected. That's a huge deal when Republicans are holding on to just a slim majority in Congress. But Democrats, they're in panic mode. They're looking to California to try to claw back some of those seats. Gavin Newsom wants to give them a win. Let's start, though, back in Texas. Republicans there just played their cards masterfully. The new maps cement GOP advantages in suburban districts where Democrats thought they had a chance. And they make it harder for Democrats to expand in areas that were starting to trend somewhat blue. The result? Republicans could net 5 new seats. That's not speculation. That's baked into the math of these new districts. And the timing couldn't be better for Trump and the GOP heading into the midterms. Now, Democrats are pinning their own hopes on Governor Gavin Newsom, who's pushing a ballot measure to dismantle California's independent redistricting commission. Why? Because California's commission is, believe it or not, too fair for the Democrats' liking. Democrats want control so they can draw themselves a friendlier map to offset the GOP gains in Texas and elsewhere. But here's where it gets kind of wild. Newsom's plan is facing opposition not just from Republicans, not just from Trump, but from some surprising names. Former Republican Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger, former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, and even billionaire Charles Munger are teaming up to stop Newsom. Munger, the heir to Warren Buffett's late business partner, is the guy who helped create California's independent redistricting commission in the first place. He's already dropped $10 million to kill Newsom's scheme. And political experts say this fight could end up costing over $200 million before it's all said and done. That's just how high the stakes are. Meanwhile, Republicans aren't stopping with Texas. There's growing momentum in states like Indiana, Missouri, and Ohio to redraw maps mid-decade. Normally, redistricting happens once every 10 years after the census, after the new numbers are in. But Democrats already broke that norm in blue states. They gerrymandered aggressively in places like Massachusetts, where 36% of voters backed Trump in 2024, yet not a single Republican holds a seat in Congress. Not one. Indiana's Republican Attorney General Todd Rokita put it bluntly. He said illegal immigrants skewed the 2020 census, tilting representation unfairly toward blue states like California. His words, "I'm done bringing a knife to a gunfight against aggressive, nonstop left-wing tactics." He's right. Democrats have been slicing and dicing their states for years. Now Republicans are ready to play by the same rules, and they should. We should. This isn't happening in a vacuum. President Trump himself met with Indiana leaders, including Senate President Roderick Bray and House Speaker Todd Huston. Vice President J.D. Vance hosted dozens of Indiana lawmakers in Washington to talk through redistricting strategy. After those meetings, even some skeptical Republicans started coming around. One state rep admitted, "I'm not as opposed to it as I was." That's a sign of where the momentum is heading, and it should be. Governor Mike Braun hasn't called a special session yet, but the pressure is mounting for him to do so. Now, to be fair, polls in Indiana show most voters oppose mid-decade redistricting. People don't like the idea of politicians moving the goalposts mid-game. But Vance is making a strong argument. He says Republicans are simply doing what Democrats already do, making the system a little more fair on the national scale. And here's the truth. If Democrats can live with 0 Republicans in Massachusetts, then Democrats have no business complaining when Republicans secure stronger majorities in Texas, Indiana, Ohio, and maybe even in South Carolina. South Carolina, in the Palmetto State, we have 1 Democrat congressional seat. Jim Clyburn has had that seat for a long, long time now. It is awful looking. Have you ever looked at at Jim Clyburn's congressional district? It goes from one side of the state to the other side of the state. Talk about gerrymandering. That district was drawn just for him, just so a Democrat would have a chance. Why? Why would we want to do that anymore? There's been some talk of South Carolina redrawing their districts. I think they need to get on with it. I think that's exactly what South Carolina should do. We should draw the districts based on the population and what makes sense for the district, not the fact that we have to draw the line so that we can't have one Democrat member of Congress. We don't owe the Democrats anything. We don't owe the Democrats a seat in Congress from South Carolina. Our population shows something otherwise. Now, let's not miss the forest for the trees here. This isn't just about drawing lines on a map. This is about who controls Congress. The House majority is razor thin. A shift of just a handful of seats could hand the gavel back to the Democrats. They're going to try to do it. Remember, Democrats are desperate. Biden is out. Kamala Harris fizzled. The party is rudderless. They're counting on picking up House seats in the midterms to rebuild momentum. If Republicans slam the door shut with these maps, Democrats are in serious trouble, and that's exactly what we need to make sure happens. That's why Newsom is gambling big in California. That's why President Trump, Governor Greg Abbott are pressing in Texas. That's why Indiana, Missouri, Ohio, South Carolina should be on the table. We're watching a high-stakes chess game that will decide whether Trump can keep governing with a Republican majority in the Congress, in the U.S. House, or spend the rest of his second term battling a Democrat-controlled House. What would you like? You want to appear to be fair? or do you want to keep control of the U.S. House of Representatives? Text me, email me, joey@joeyhudson.com. Leave me a message on the MyPillow message line. By the way, when you go to mypillow.com, always use promo code Joey, and you'll get the very best possible deals. Mike Lindell has some great deals right now. Still has his standard My Pillow for just $19.98 when you use promo code Joey. You can also get, for a limited time, you can get the classic collection at wholesale prices. Queen sizes, $24.98. King sizes, $29.98. Get the body pillow for just $39.98 and the multi-use pillow for only $12.98. Again, always use promo code Joey to get these great deals. You can call 800-893-4059, 800-893-4059, or simply go to mypillow.com and use promo code Joey. But leave me a message on the MyPillow message line. Am I off base here? Should we not even be considering redrawing the one Democrat district in South Carolina, or should we redraw it and take it? You tell me. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Thanks for joining me in the PhD Weight Loss Studios. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. If you haven't joined my mailing list yet, visit my website, joeyhudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails and the most up-to-date news. Also, join me on my YouTube channel. Be sure and like, comment, and subscribe. Just search for Joey Hudson. As always, thanks for spending a few minutes of your day with me. Do me a favor and forward this episode to a few friends. Just click on the share button and send to your contacts. We need to build an army of conservatives to win our country back, and we can do that by continuing to share the truth with our friends and family. Keep those comments coming via the Furman Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. Email to joey@joeyhudson.com, and I love your messages on the MyPillow message line. Again, that's 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Be sure and take advantage of the MyPillow special, just $14.88 on the standard MyPillows when you use promo code Joey. Order online at mypillow.com or call 800-893-4053. We're back again tomorrow and hope you'll plan to join us. Until then, remember, God's got this. He's still in control.